Hello and welcome to World Talks. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. The political landscape in France has been rocked by the conviction of far-right leader Marine Le Pen. Now found guilty of misusing EU funds, she's now facing a 5-year ban from holding public office. And now that decision has triggered protests, divided public opinion, and drawn international reactions from world leaders. Now, with her presidential ambitions now in limbo, what does this mean for France's future and for European democracy? Well, let's find out with my next guest, Paweł Zerka, Senior Policy Fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations. Paweł Zerka spearheads the organization's polling and data research on foreign affairs. Paweł, so glad to have you with us here this morning on World Talks.
Hello, good morning.
So, Paweł, we've seen protests in Paris both in support of and against Marine Le Pen. What does this tell us about the current political divide in France?
I think that right now we face a moment where a decisive narrative about what has happened last week needs to be established, and that's why different political forces have decided to hold rallies, especially in Paris, in some other places as well, because they understand that the public opinion about the judgment that Marine Le Pen received is only being formed right now. I think this was a heated weekend across the world. We have seen plenty of protests across America, in Spain, and it's good to see the French protests in such a perspective. It was not a spontaneous number of protests in favor of Marine Le Pen. It was rather a rally centrally organized by Marine Le Pen's party, Rassemblement National. And if this was supposed to serve as a demonstration of power, then I think that it really didn't work, because organizers themselves, they say that they managed to gather something like 15,000 supporters, but it looked like just several thousand of people gathering at a major square in Paris. It didn't look impressive. And I think that they also, as a party, need to draw conclusions that they are facing a major dilemma right now, because for the last couple of years, Marine Le Pen and her colleagues from the party have tried to normalize their image. She wanted to become seen as electable, not just by hard right supporters, but also by normal voters. And right now, with this judgment which bans her from becoming a candidate in the upcoming presidential election, she has a temptation of becoming a hardline politician again. But this, to my mind, is leading some of her supporters to distance themselves from the party.
You mentioned a couple of things there, but I do want to know, first of all, you said that public opinion is only being shaped. But what can you tell us a little bit, of course, after seeing these protests, about current public sentiment in France?
Yeah, so there have been a couple of polls conducted just after the judgment which Marine Le Pen heard last Monday. And one major poll found out that the French public opinion is strongly divided. So there is a slight majority who believes that the judgment was fair and that Marine Le Pen was treated as any other politician or citizen would be treated. But I'm saying it's just a slight majority of 50-something% of the population who shares such a belief, whereas there is a quite strong minority, which we can call a plurality, of over 40%, who say that the judgment was strongly political, that Marine Le Pen wasn't treated fairly. And we have seen also, just after the judgment last Monday, reactions from various politicians who, not necessarily from the same political camp as Marine Le Pen, who, including Prime Minister François Bayrou, who is coming from a centrist or center-right party, who said he was troubled by the verdict. And I think that plenty of people might have felt troubled. It was hard to understand why Marine Le Pen was not just found guilty, because that's easy to understand. There were proofs that of misconduct, but the fact that she was impeded from becoming a candidate in the presidential election due to a provisional application of the judgment, I think that was a very troubling element of this verdict, not just for her supporters, but also for several other people.
But I mean, Paweł, her supporters have called the ruling a politically motivated attack. But on your point and what you just said, how strong is that legal case against her?
Listen, I'm not a judge, and I trust judges in how they shape or frame their verdicts. The problem is that we don't really have many precedents, and the law based on which this verdict is based is also quite fresh. Legal experts who are commenting heavily on the issue are saying that simply the judge could not do otherwise than to judge Marine Le Pen severely. And actually, she wasn't. The ruling that she received wasn't as severe as the law itself could predict. Because
so when a politician embezzles funds, that's considered not severe? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. I'm saying that that she, based on the law that was applied, she could have been prevented from becoming a candidate in elections for 10 years rather than just 5 years. So it's not fair to say that she was being treated particularly severely. But the problem is that we don't have several other cases where we could compare how she was treated compared to other politicians in France, because the law is fresh and because there are not so many cases to compare with.
Paweł, I know you said, like you're not a judge, but let me ask you this. What would a possible consequence be of undermining that verdict and the public's trust in the judicial system?
Do you mean a political or electoral consequence? I think that there are various consequences that this might have. So electorally, I don't think that this necessarily needs to work to the benefit of RN. So I feel that it's quite unlikely that even if Marine Le Pen appeals, that the judgment will be changed in the next instance of the judicial system. So most likely she will not be able to become a candidate in presidential elections, and therefore somebody else from her movement will have to become a candidate. But if her party goes hardline after what has happened, they will likely lose some of their supporters while mobilizing their most hardline base. I don't think that will allow either Marine Le Pen or whoever replaces her as a candidate to mobilize over 50% of supporters in the second round of presidential elections. So I don't think that judgment will make her or her replaces or her substitute a likely winner of the next presidential election. But there is a more severe consequence of what is happening in that the narrative that Marine Le Pen and her party colleagues are promoting is undermining the trust of citizens in the judicial system, in the democracy. We hear that France is actually a dictatorship of judges. Perhaps there are plenty of people in France who are immune to such a narrative because they have already heard that. But I'm pretty sure that there are plenty of people outside Paris, most of all, who are susceptible to such a narrative. And this is dangerous if people lose trust in their own democracy.
Paweł, let me ask you this just very briefly. I mean, reactions have poured in from figures like Donald Trump, like Viktor Orban, also among many others. What does the international backing signal about Marine Le Pen's global political network?
Of course, Marine Le Pen is part of the international movement of nationalist politicians. Although she has never been very close to Donald Trump and actually has tried to distance herself from him. So after Donald Trump's re-election last year, plenty of far-right politicians across Europe were super happy to see him back in the White House, but she was more reserved in that respect. And this might be because she understands that much of the French public is having some sort of anti-American sentiments. And right now, when she hears that Donald Trump supports her so vehemently, together with Elon Musk, and they post messages saying that she should be freed, although she's still free, but still the message is very telling. I think that this can be a sort of a poisoned chalice for her. So on the one hand, it's nice to hear such a powerful man supporting her. On the other hand, this does not necessarily need to be welcomed by her supporters.
Thank you so much, Paweł Zerka, Senior Policy Fellow at the European Council of Foreign Relations, for being with us here this morning.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And that's all for this edition of World Talks. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching.